In the mist-shrouded mountains of ancient China, where the echoes of temples mingle with the rustling of forests, a story is told that has endured for generations. It is a legend that not only entertains, but teaches, heals, and leaves a deep reflection in the hearts of those who listen to it. This is the story of Guanyin Bodhisattva and the precious mirrors. It is said that in a distant era, people had begun to move away from kindness and compassion. Selfishness, envy, and lies had gradually seeped into the villages, covering hearts like an invisible shadow. Worried about the suffering these feelings would cause, Guanyin, the Bodhisattva of compassion, decided to descend to the mortal world. But he did not do it with sermons or with great miracles. Instead, he did it in a way that was as simple as it was unexpected, carrying with him some very special mirrors. One morning, while the sun was barely illuminating the peaks, a mysterious figure arrived at a small town hidden among the mountains. She was a serene-looking woman, with simple but impeccable clothes, and eyes so deep that they seemed to see directly into the souls of those who looked at her. In front of her, carefully placed on a modest wooden table, were several mirrors. They were no ordinary mirrors. Their frames were delicately carved, and their surfaces seemed to shine with a light of their own, as if they trapped secrets in their reflection. The market, normally bustling and full of laughter, fell silent when the woman spoke. These mirrors are not simple objects. They reflect the deepest truth of whoever looks at them. Does anyone dare to look at themselves? The murmur grew among the villagers. Some laughed nervously, others avoided his gaze. But there were those who, moved by curiosity, took a step forward. The first to accept the challenge was a merchant known for his wealth and his greed. He approached the mirror with a confident smile, but as soon as he saw himself reflected, his face changed. In the mirror, he didn't see his usual sly expression. Instead, he saw cold, empty eyes and hands that, although they seemed to be holding gold, trembled with fear of losing it. "This is a trick," the merchant shouted, turning away angrily. But the woman did not respond with anger or reproach. He simply spoke calmly. "The mirror doesn't lie. What you see is not a trick, but what you carry in your heart." From that day on, news of the mirrors spread quickly throughout the town. One by one, the villagers approached Guanyin's table. A young man who always talked about bravery saw in the mirror a scared boy hiding in the shadow. An old woman who everyone believed to be wise saw the sadness she had hidden for years reflected. A woman who was admired for her beauty saw an empty, dull, loveless face. Mirrors revealed not only the good, but also the bad, the hidden and the forgotten. And although many walked away scared, others returned with tears in their eyes, ready to change, to face their truths. As the days passed, the market stopped being just a place of commerce. It became a space for reflection, where people talked about what they had seen in the mirrors and sought advice from each other. However, not everyone was happy with these changes. In the shadows, some voices began to question the mysterious woman. Who was she really? Why had he come to town? And what did you want to achieve with those mirrors? The transformation that the mirrors were generating was not easy for everyone. Truths, when revealed, can heal, but they can also hurt. And in this small town, where peace seemed as fragile as glass, Guanyin's arrival would soon unleash something much deeper than simple reflections in front of a mirror. Because, in the end, mirrors not only showed the truth of individuals, but also the truth of the entire town. A truth that not everyone was ready to face. And so, among murmurs and secrets, the story of Guanyin and its precious mirrors was just beginning. The days passed, and Guanyin's mirrors continued to reveal secrets. Every morning, the mysterious woman arrived at the market, set up her table, and placed the mirrors with the same calm and dedication. And every day, new villagers approached with courage, curiosity, or fear to face their reflection. However, not everyone accepted what they saw. Some villagers reacted with anger, others with sadness, and a few with genuine transformation. But the truth was that no one left indifferent after looking in one of those mirrors. Among the villagers, there was a young man named Liang. He was known for being honest, kind, and always willing to help. However, Liang avoided mirrors. Although others encouraged him, he always found an excuse not to look at himself. "What are you afraid of, Liang?" a friend asked him as they passed by Guanyin's table. "I'm not afraid," he replied, with a forced smile. "I just don't need it." But Liang knew he was lying. There was something in his heart that troubled him, a shadow he was afraid to face. Meanwhile, in another corner of the market, the village chief, Elder Zhao, watched everything with a critical eye. Zhao was a powerful man, respected, but also feared. Although their authority had never been questioned, the mirrors were beginning to sow doubts among the villagers. One afternoon, Zhao approached Guanyin's table. The entire market held its breath. Everyone wanted to see what the mirror would reveal to the village leader. Guanyin looked at him with the same serenity with which she looked at everyone. "Please, Honorable Zhao, if you wish to look at yourself, the mirror is here for you." Zhao frowned. "I don't need a mirror to know who I am. I am the leader of this town. I have cared for these lands and these people for years. I have nothing to hide." Guanyin didn't say anything. He only bowed his head slightly in respect. Zhao turned and walked away, but his expression had changed. A small crack of doubt had formed in his gaze. That night, Elder Zhao couldn't sleep. Guanyin's words and the presence of the mirrors tormented him. Finally, he decided to return to the market under the cover of darkness. There, when no one was looking, he stood in front of one of the mirrors. What he saw took his breath away. The reflection did not show the respected leader that everyone knew, but a tired man, his face marked by ambition and his eyes full of fear of losing power. Zhao stepped back, his hands shaking. The mirror had shown him something he himself had refused to see for years. The next day, Zhao called a meeting with the villagers. His voice was firm, but there was a shadow of concern in his eyes. "This woman and her mirrors are dividing the town," he exclaimed. "They are filling us with doubts and distrust. We cannot allow it to continue." Some villagers nodded silently, but others looked at him in bewilderment. Many of them had begun to find peace by facing their truths. Zhao's words resonated, but they failed to completely extinguish the change that the mirrors had started. In the crowd, Liang watched silently. Something inside him told him that what was happening was not a simple conflict between a worried leader and a foreigner with magic mirrors. It was something deeper. That night, Liang made a decision. When the market was empty and the moon was shining high in the sky, he slowly approached Guanyin's table. She was there, sitting calmly, as if she were waiting for him. "You have come, Liang," Guanyin said with a soft smile. "I knew you would." "I don't know what I'm going to see," he answered with a trembling voice, "but I think it's time to know." Liang stood in front of the mirror. For a moment, he saw nothing, just its reflection, as common and familiar as ever. But then, the surface of the mirror seemed to ripple, like water in a pond. What Liang saw made him recoil. There, in the reflection, he saw not a good and generous man, but someone paralyzed by fear. Fear of disappointing others, fear of not being enough, fear of facing your own mistakes. Liang fell to his knees in front of Guanyin, tears in his eyes. "Now I see it," he whispered. "I've been running from myself this whole time." Guanyin leaned over and put a hand on his shoulder. "Don't worry, Liang. The first step to healing is to face what we fear. You have shown great bravery tonight." The young man nodded, wiping away his tears. For the first time in a long time, he felt like a heavy burden had been lifted from his chest. But while Liang was finding his truth, in another part of the village, Elder Zhao was planning his next move. He couldn't allow those mirrors to continue, showing what he had hidden for so long. The shadow of a greater conflict was beginning to loom over the small town, and at the center of it all were the Guanyin mirrors. As the days passed, The atmosphere in the town became more tense. Guanyin's mirrors continued to show the most hidden truths, but not everyone was willing to face them. Some villagers began to openly argue about whether the mirrors should continue or not. Some said that mirrors helped them understand themselves, to heal, to change. Others, like Elder Zhao, felt that they were crumbling the foundations of the town. The calm that had reigned before was beginning to fade. The conflict reached its peak when Zhao called an extraordinary meeting with all the villagers. In his speech, he seemed determined, with a steady gaze and a firm voice. "This is an ancient and honorable town, founded on sound principles," he began, looking at the villagers who had gathered in the square. "We don't need magic mirrors or lessons from a foreign woman. The order of our community is being threatened by doubt and chaos. We must reject this deception." A wave of murmurs ran through the square. Some villagers began to nod, while others looked hesitant. Among those who doubted was Liang. Although she had experienced the mirror's revelation and felt she had taken an important step toward her own healing, she could not ignore the growing tension. The confrontation with Zhao was inevitable, but what was the right path? Seeing the growing division, Guanyin decided to intervene. That day, he appeared in front of the square, with his serene posture and his imperturbable face. At first, the villagers looked at her suspiciously, but she reassured them with her presence. "I know this conflict is not easy to resolve," Guanyin said, his voice echoing with deep calm. "But the mirrors have not come to cause discord, but to reveal what was already in their hearts. I haven't given them anything that wasn't there before. What they see is not a trick, but a reflection of their own desires, fears, and hopes." Zhao, visibly upset, stepped forward. "Enough of your words of empty wisdom," he exclaimed. "I don't want to hear more about your mirrors or your teachings. The people do not need more of this reflection. What you need is order and respect. Are you going to allow your magic to destroy what we have worked so hard to build for so many years?" Guanyin looked at him softly, without disturbing his serenity. "I am not coming to destroy what you have built. I come to show you what is already hidden in your hearts." She paused and, looking at the town, continued. "No one can build a solid future on lies. True order is born from deep understanding, acceptance, and compassion." Liang, who until then had remained on the sidelines, took a step forward. Everyone's eyes focused on him. "Zhao is right about something," he began in a firm voice. "This town has been built with hard work and sacrifices, but Guanyin is also right. The people cannot prosper if we continue to look to the future without facing our shadows. I looked in the mirrors and saw what had been hidden in my heart. I'm not ashamed of it. And I know that if we all look in the mirror of truth, we can heal and grow together." Zhao frowned and looked at Liang with disdain. "And now you think that everything we have done so far is useless, young man? That we should allow simple mirrors to change the destiny of this community?" Liang kept his gaze steady. "I don't think it's useless. I believe we can be better, more authentic, more united if we are honest with ourselves. And if that leads us to change, then we must do so." Guanyin watched silently, a light smile on his lips. She knew that the battle was not just between her and Zhao, but between the villagers themselves. Each one had to make their decision, face their own reflections, and choose which path to follow. That day, the town was divided. Some sided with Zhao, convinced that order and tradition must prevail. Others, like Liang, began to see the true power of mirrors, the ability to transform the inside to enhance the outside. But not everyone immediately understood Guanyin's words. Peace seemed further away than ever. But what happened in the following days showed that the external conflict was only a reflection of the internal conflict that the villagers still did not know how to resolve. The question was not whether or not they should follow Guanyin's advice, but whether they were ready to face the truth of their own hearts. That same night, as the moon illuminated the path to the temple, Liang headed to the mirror table once again. At first, he had come out of curiosity, but now he came with a deeper purpose. to understand the teaching that he had not yet fully assimilated. Guanyin looked at him and nodded. "You come to seek the truth, Liang. Are you prepared for what you are going to see?" Liang did not hesitate. "Yes, I'm ready." Looking in the mirror again, Liang saw something different. Instead of seeing only his own fears, he saw something else. A collective reflection, as if the shadows of all the villagers were united into a single being. It was a reminder that he could not heal without his community healing as well. With a calmer heart, but still full of questions, Liang left the temple. He knew that, despite the divisions, true change had to begin within him. And to achieve this, he would have to face not only his own reflection, but also that of others. The conflict was not over yet, but the villagers were beginning to understand something crucial. Guanyin's mirrors reflected not only their faces, but their souls. And in those souls was the true battle. The town was divided. On one side were the villagers who supported Elder Zhao, clinging to the established order and fearful of the changes that the Guanyin mirrors had brought. On the other, there were those who, like Liang, had found in mirrors an opportunity to face their fears and heal their hearts. The tension could be felt in the air. Distrustful glances were exchanged in the streets. Conversations became whispers, and cordial greetings were less and less frequent. The market, which had once been a vibrant and lively place, now seemed like a taut rope about to snap. Meanwhile, Guanyin remained in her usual place, with the same immutable calm, sitting behind her precious mirrors. Every day, some villagers kept coming closer, facing their reflections, crying, healing. But there were fewer and fewer. The fear, sown by Zhao and his followers, was beginning to gain ground. One morning, a group of men loyal to Zhao showed up in front of Guanyin's table. Their faces were tense, their eyes full of determination and some fear. At the front of the group, Zhao walked with firm steps. "Guanyin," said the old man in a deep voice, "I have asked you to leave. Take your mirrors with you and leave our people in peace. But you didn't want to listen. So this will be your last chance." The villagers nearby watched the scene with expectation and fear. Guanyin looked up at Zhao and spoke with her usual serenity. "It is not for me to decide when to leave, Elder Zhao. It is not I who has brought the conflict to this town. Mirrors don't create problems, they only reveal them." Zhao clenched his fists. "Enough! We will not allow you to continue sowing discord between us," he shouted, pointing at the mirrors. "Destroy those mirrors." A murmur of horror ran through the villagers present. Liang, who had been watching from the corner, ran towards the table. "Don't do it!" Shout. "Don't destroy the mirrors. They don't understand what they are about to do." But it was too late. One of Zhao's men grabbed one of the mirrors and threw it to the ground with all his strength. The glass shattered, scattering shiny shards everywhere. A dead silence enveloped the market. Guanyin closed his eyes for a moment, as if in deep pain. But when he opened them, his gaze was firm and compassionate. "What they've broken isn't just a mirror," he said softly. "They have broken an opportunity to see themselves clearly. But remember, the truth does not disappear just because you destroy its reflection." Liang fell to his knees in front of the broken fragments, tears welling in his eyes. The villagers around seemed paralyzed, some horrified, others confused. Zhao, for his part, took a step back, as if finally understanding the gravity of his actions. That night, the town was plunged into silence. Nobody left their houses. The windows were closed, the doors barred. But in Liang's heart, a flame burned brightly. He knew that what was happening couldn't end like this. If the people did not find a way to heal their hearts and accept their truths, the shadows within each one would grow until they were completely consumed. At dawn, Liang made a decision. He gathered some villagers who, like him, had learned from the mirrors and understood their teachings. Together, they decided to talk to the rest of the town, share their experiences, and try to heal the wounds that fear and mistrust had opened. We cannot let fear divide us, Liang said as he spoke to a small group gathered in the square. The Guanyin mirrors did not bring the conflict. They only made it visible. But now that we've seen it, it's up to us to decide what to do with it. Some villagers nodded with tears in their eyes. Others looked at the ground, embarrassed by their own actions. But there was hope. Meanwhile, Guanyin watched from a distance. He knew he couldn't force the town to change, but he also knew that the seed of transformation had already been planted. Now it was up to them to water it and let it grow. As night fell, Liang approached Guanyin again. He knelt in front of her humbly. "I don't know if we can heal this town, teacher," he said with a trembling voice. "But I promise I will do everything in my power to try." Guanyin smiled tenderly and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Change is never easy, Liang. But the fact that you are willing to try is already a big step. Remember, the reflection in the mirrors was only a guide. True transformation comes from within." Liang nodded, feeling a renewed peace in his heart. "I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to take it." However, the story was not over yet. The fate of the town now depended on one last decision, one last reflection that everyone had to face together. And as the moon illuminated the night sky, the villagers were preparing, although perhaps unknowingly, for the most important moment of their lives. Dawn brought with it a strange silence to the town. It was as if the earth itself was holding its breath, waiting for something important. Liang walked the streets, observing the tired faces of his neighbors, some full of regret, others still clinging to distrust. But there was something else, a spark of hope, small but persistent, that shone in the eyes of those who had understood the teaching of the Guanyin mirrors. Guanyin was still in her usual place, but this time, in front of her table, only a few mirrors remained. The others had been destroyed in Elder Zhao's impulsive act. However, the remaining mirrors seemed to shine with a special light, as if they contained more than just reflections. Liang gathered the villagers in the main square. This time, there was no shouting or arguing, just the sound of the wind passing gently between the houses. "Friends," Liang began in a firm but kind voice, "we have been living in the shadows of our own fears. Guanyin's mirrors did not bring those shadows. They only showed them to us. But upon seeing them, many of us react with anger, with rejection. We broke the mirrors, thinking that this way we could escape what they showed us. But the truth is still there, within us. We can't hide it forever." Elder Zhao stood in the crowd, his shoulders slumped and his gaze fixed on the ground. Liang looked at him directly. "Elder Zhao, you have been a strong leader for this village for many years, but even leaders have fears. They have mistakes, and that doesn't make them weak. It makes them human." Zhao slowly looked up, his eyes filled with tears. All his life, he had tried to maintain control, to project a perfect image, but now he realized that he had been running from himself. "You're right, Liang," he said in a broken voice. "I have acted out of fear. Fear of losing respect, fear of facing my own mistakes. Destroying those mirrors was not an act of leadership, but rather cowardice." Murmur of surprise ran through the villagers. It was the first time Zhao showed his vulnerability to them. At that moment, Guanyin stood up and spoke softly, but with a firmness that resonated in every corner of the square. "Each of you carries a mirror inside you. They don't need a physical one to face their truths. The mirrors I brought here were just tools, but true vision is in their hearts." There was a deep silence. Guanyin took one of the mirrors left on his table and held it up so everyone could see it. "This will be the last mirror," he said, "but it will not show one individual, but all of you. This mirror is the reflection of the collective soul of this town. Are you ready to see who you really are as a community?" The villagers exchanged nervous glances, but finally nodded. Liang and Zhao approached the mirror, followed by the other villagers. Everyone formed a circle around Guanyin. When Guanyin tilted the mirror towards them, the reflection they saw was not that of individual faces, but a more complex, deeper image. They saw a people divided, broken by fear, distrust, and pride. But they also saw kindness, love, sacrifice, and hope. They saw mothers caring for their children, neighbors helping each other, old people sharing their wisdom, and young people dreaming of a better future. The mirror showed them not only their shadows, but also their light. Some villagers began to cry. Others hugged each other in silence. Liang felt his chest fill with deep warmth, as if a long open wound was finally beginning to heal. Elder Zhao fell to his knees in front of Guanyin. "I understand now," he whispered. "We cannot build a strong people if we continue to ignore our own truths." Guanyin smiled tenderly. The mirror did not show them something that was not already in their hearts. Now, the choice is yours. Will they face their shadows and work together to heal? Or will they continue to run from them? One by one, the villagers began to speak. They apologized. They forgave each other. They hugged each other. Liang took Zhao's hand and helped him stand up. They both looked into each other's eyes and nodded. "It's time to rebuild," Liang said. "Not only our homes and our market, but also our hearts." Over the next few days, the town began to change. The villagers worked together, not only to repair the material damage, but also to heal the invisible wounds that the conflict had left. Zhao, although tired, helped every step of the process, and Liang emerged as a symbol of hope and unity. Finally, one morning, when everything seemed to be calm, Guanyin collected his last mirrors and began to walk slowly towards the mountains. Liang saw her leave and ran after her. "Guanyin!" called. "Why are you leaving now? We could still learn so much from you." Guanyin stopped and looked at him with a serene smile. "They don't need me anymore, Liang. The most important reflection is not in the mirrors, but in your own hearts. They have learned to look inward and face what they find there. My task here is finished." Liang bowed his head in respect. "Thank you, teacher. We will never forget what you taught us." Guanyin nodded and continued on his way, slowly disappearing into the mist of the mountains. The town was never the same again, not because the Guanyin mirrors had brought anything magical, but because they had taught people to face their own truths bravely. And although Guanyin is gone, his legacy remained in every honest look, in every act of compassion, and in every heart that dared to face its own reflection.